I'm Jim Collison, and live from the Gallup campus here in Omaha, Nebraska, as well as our office in Atlanta. This is Gallup's Themed Thursday, recorded on September 11th, 2014. Themed Thursday is a Gallup webcast series that dives deep into the Clifton StrengthsFinder themes one at a time. Today's theme is Maximizer. If you have questions, comments, or contributions during the webcast, we do have a live chat room available right below the main video window. If you're listening to the recorded version, all you need or you need custom strength solutions from us for small, medium, or large organizations, contact us, coaching@gallup.com. And don't forget to visit the Gallup Strength Center. That's just gallupstrengthcenter.com for all your coaching resources and training needs. You can also catch the video and both streaming and downloadable audio for offline listening to past shows over at our blog, coaching.gallup.com. Kurt Liesfeld is our host today. Kurt works as an advanced learning and development consultant with Gallup here on the riverfront, although today he is in Atlanta. Kurt, welcome to another Theme Thursday.
Jim, it's great to be here. Yes, I'm in Atlanta. I'm leading a accelerated coaching program at our Atlanta office, and so I'm really happy to be here. And today, for our guest, we have Adrienne Wilson, who is also in Atlanta right now. We're not in the same place. She's one part of the city, I'm in another. Adrienne is a Gallup certified coach. She went through our program and is one of the early certified coaches that we have. She's from both Metro Atlanta and Dallas-Fort Worth, and she has a strengths company called strengths-based company called Strength Zone, and she's already working with a number of organizations, helping bring strengths to their organizations. So we're really thrilled to have her with us today as we talk about Maximizer. So I think the first thing I'll do is I'll just kind of launch into my, I call it my Maximizer overture, the high points of this particular theme. And if I were to kind of give a brief definition of Maximizer, I would describe it as a strong orientation towards and commitment to excellence that leads to quality outcomes. It's really people who have a kind of a nose for quality and also a strong desire for quality, and I think the impact of that is that it makes people kind of discriminating away. They are aware of levels of quality. They kind of know good, better, best, and the difference between those, and obviously they are more oriented from moving from good to great or from better to best. It's also about people who want to do what they do best. Many times they are Maximizer is one of my themes. Over my career, I have gradually narrowed my focus until I obviously am doing what I think I do best right now. This may be the epitome of my career, talking about themes. I'm a specialist to some degree. To some degree, a Maximizer might be a subject matter expert. Not necessarily that's the only thing, but I can see a Maximizer doing that kind of, I really want to kind of master something and understand it completely. I think Maximizer is also about influence. In fact, it's one of the influencing themes, and that's one of the questions I'm interested in asking Adrienne about how her Maximizer helps her influence, how it helps her lead. I find that Maximizers are often people who are interested in return on investment. In other words, I've only got so much time, money, and energy. Where do I want to invest it? Where will I get the biggest result for my effort and investment of those things? I also think that Maximizers are people who are interested in leaders many times, because they realize that leaders are likely to have the biggest, if I invest in leaders, I might have the biggest return on my investment in an organization. And I know that's been part of your story as well, Adrienne, is your interest in leadership. There are a number of themes that I think it might help to kind of compare and contrast Maximizer with some other themes to help clarify it. For example, a couple of themes that I have in my dominant themes are focus and Maximizer. Focus concentrates on a goal, while Maximizer really concentrates on excellence. They have some similarities, but they're different. Individualization and Maximizer are two themes that seem to have some things in common. Individualization perceives uniqueness, whereas Maximizer prefers and promotes human excellence. Maximizer and competition, I always tell people these two themes are cousins. They might be kind of misunderstood or mistakenly seen. When someone has Maximizer, someone might think they are competitive, but Maximizers are really interested in quality, while people with competition are interested in victory. Those are two slightly different things. Also, a person with Maximizer, I think both of these themes compare. People with Maximizer compare themselves to some standard of excellence, whereas people with competition usually compare themselves to other people. And so they've got similarities but difference. So Maximizer is probably not the most frequent, but not the most rare theme in top 5. 17% of people have Maximizer in their top 5. The theme that is most likely paired with Maximizer is strategic. And a couple of other themes that are also paired highly are Achiever, which makes sense. I think you have Achiever in your top 5, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, so Achiever and Maximizer kind of go together. If you want a lot of excellence, you have to work pretty hard. And the themes that are least likely paired with Maximizer, and this is the rarest combination, you are probably not going to find Maximizer and Restorative together in top 5. It's less, it's minuscule. In fact, I often tell people, if you have Maximizer and Restorative in your top 5, send me a picture of you. I want to see you. I want you to become my Maximizer Restorative poster child. So those are some kind of opening thoughts about Maximizer, and we really want to kind of hear from Adrian here. So Adrian, thank you for taking the time to be with us to talk about Maximizer. And I want to just start with some of your earliest recollections about what Maximizer looked like you when you were a young girl.
Okay, well, thank you for having me on the show today. I would say that in my childhood, my earliest remembrances of Maximizer showed up in sports. Like most young people, my parents enrolled me in a lot of different types of sports and really trying to give me an opportunity to have fun and gain all the benefits of being athletic. And I can recall that I had a stint in tennis, I had a stint in gymnastics, and I was seeing very quickly that I was very mediocre in those sports. I knew that I was going to a lot of practice and I was putting a lot of time into it, but I could comparatively see that I just was not going to really excel in those sports. And as a young person, I figured out in gymnastics that I actually was pretty good in one particular event called the vault. So I could run fast down a runway and hit a vault and get over it and do that. And once I learned that there was such a thing in track and field called the long jump and the triple jump, I said, aha, maybe I could really be good at that. So I actually, sorted through that because I really wanted a great return on my investment for practicing so much, even as a kid. And unfortunately, I did make the transition over to track and field and had some great successes individually and as part of a team.
Yeah, no, actually, that's a great example of, I think, the sorting nature, kind of the evaluating nature of what am I really good at. And you found out in the vault that, hey, I'm pretty good at jumping. And obviously, the ability to jump a long way. This was the long jump and the triple jump.
That's right.
And if I'm not mistaken, you won some championships in this as well.
I did. I led to a national championship as a teenager. And I never been able to do that in tennis or gymnastics.
Yeah, and you knew pretty early that I don't want to just be mediocre. I think that's an interesting word. Mediocre is almost the enemy to some degree.
Right. For the time put into something, whether it's personally or into tasks, there really is a thought process that says, I really just want to get the most out of what's being put into this. And that's really translates into a number of ways of thinking and being.
Yeah, that's a great example of that return on and you might not have called that return on investment
Oh
when you were
no.
a young woman,
No.
but that's kind of what that is. You had a sense of I want to get something, I want to get a better result from my effort.
Exactly.
Um, how how has Maximizer helped you influence? I mean, we call this an influence theme. How do you
Mhm.
see Maximizer as a theme that helps you influence other people?
Mhm. Well, that's a great question. When I'm a part of a team and in a leadership role in a team, I really like to understand and identify what are the top two or three things about each person on the team so that I can allow them to do what they do best. Naturally, that is correlates to a fascination with strengths.
Uh-huh.
And so I think I was probably doing that before I understood the psychology of strengths and the science of strengths is that let me figure out what each person does well. And what I've learned over time is what we know in strengths is that when people are really allowed to do what they do best, their engagement is high, their productivity is high, and they're much happier people. So I can recall many times on teams where people would say to me, you know, I like being a part of this team because when I was on that team, I was doing something I hated to do. And so I really just have fun with teamwork and even individual coaching, trying to really put people in the right places on the team so that they can really, really shine.
So that was an approach you had even before you were introduced to the Strengths Finder and kind of this strengths philosophy. It was kind of an intuitive thing inside of you even before that.
Right, and probably the maximizer has driven that because I'm a person who felt like, well, I just really want to excel in what I'm doing. Why wouldn't everyone want to do that? You know,
I
why would
like that.
anyone sign up to be just kind of so-so or, mediocre? So it probably just came from that natural way of thinking.
Yeah, no, I think that's wonderful. Can you give me an example of where I mean, I think you've already given me one with your kind of athletic experience, taking where you took something from good to great, either in your own life or in the life of a team or an organization. Do you have an example of where you feel you played some part of that?
Right. I had an opportunity to revamp a website within the last 3 years, and the website and the content was really very solid. It had good content. Had good bones, had great ingredients, great content, and I really saw that as a pearl per se. I was like, well, I have been given this gift, and my assignment is to revamp it and to improve it. And that just really jazzed my maximizer because I was like, wow, I get to take something that is already in an outstanding state and really just kick it up a notch. And with that in mind, the final product um, was a better website, added bells and whistles. We use that term. How do we add bells and whistles to something that's already, pretty solid and has a great value? So that is something that I just enjoyed doing, and it really allowed me to really take a pearl and just polish it up and just take it to a new level.
Was that primarily the results of your own efforts, or was that you kind of working with other people to make that happen?
Right. I actually had the opportunity to assemble a team to get that done. And so I really sought the best, whom I believe to be the best graphic designer, the best coder, I mean, down to that, just, someone who really could see color and design. I engaged the experts of the subject of the website to make sure that the content would really be outstanding as well. So I was really looking for excellence in each of the key roles that are required for something as common as a website. So I had the chance to kind of pick the quarterback the team per se.
Yeah, you got to make selection. I mean, that's one of the
Exactly.
things that I say. I think people with maximizers are selective, which might mean that sometimes they're good selectors. They
Yes.
might have a good sense of, choosing between not good and even better and best. So,
Exactly.
um, And this is kind of a funny question here, so take this with a sense of humor. I have this theory that those of us who are maximizers, and I can say this, and Jim, you're a maximizer too. I think all of us maximizers are snobs about something. Something that we have high standards for. Jim, you're probably that way about microphones. I know you're always telling me, this, but.
A little bit of tech comes in on that.
Tech snobbery, yes. Tech snob. It's the right brand or the right name. I'm a snob about ice cream.
Oh, that's a good one.
So are you a snob about anything, Adrienne?
Well, let's see. I do have tendencies to, in a general way, know which brands per se may have the best reputation of something. That goes, pretty across the board. I do have a tendency to recommend to other people, especially if they ask me, what do you think the best this type of restaurant is, or the best this type of restaurant is? Who is, known for just excellence. And that excellence doesn't have to mean that it's pricey or that it's in a luxury category. It just simply means I think this is the best place for your money and your experience all over. So I do get a kick out of just even making suggestions as to, places and things and opportunities that I think are in good taste.
Yeah, no, I think that's just another example of this return on investment. It's a good quality value, I guess would be the word you would use. I think maybe that's what it is. What are your main? Can you talk a little bit about why excellence is important to you, why you're oriented toward it or committed to? Almost the rationale. Why do you think you have such a commitment and orientation toward excellence, if you can articulate that?
Yeah, that's good. I would say that on a personal level that performance and productivity is a reflection of the person. That's how I would translate that, is that whatever I'm producing or offering or servicing is ultimately a reflection of me. So I would not want that reflection of me to be something that's unacceptable or of poor quality. I would really want my work to be something that I could be proud of. So I think that there is a personal ownership in something reflecting me, and then if it's a team situation, then same but different. I really want that team's performance and my being a part of it to be a reflection, of the team, of the best of the team, of the outstanding things about the team instead of the lesser strengths of the team. So I think it's a good idea generally to work in a lane of strength and talent, and to not be, nearly as concerned about, trying to fix a weakness. So it's again, Maximizer is just a talent that really thrives on strengths. Because we're talking about staying in the lane of your strengths, not your lesser themes.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's an efficiency about Maximizer. I mean, when we use what comes naturally to us, it comes easier. We use less energy, and we have therefore more energy to use for something else. So there is a real efficiency. How about the relationship between your Maximizer and some of your other dominant themes? Do you pair Maximizer? Do you see how Maximizer might pair with some of your other themes?
Sure. Well, you mentioned early in the show that Achiever and Maximizer is a natural combination. I think that Achiever is the driver per se, almost like the engine behind it. It adds the stamina, the endurance of having a hardworking work ethic. I definitely can see that. I can also see some nice combinations that come out of Maximizer, and Intellection is another talent in my top five.
How do those work together? So talk more about how.
I think that those combine come out in discussions, as in if I'm part of a discussion that I have built expertise in, then I absolutely love to think and talk about that with other people who also are liking that particular subject. So I think it comes out in that. And I'm not so sure that I would be as talkative or a great participant in something that I really don't have that type of knowledge, expertise, excellence to contribute. I would definitely be more of um, a silent participant in a
It's kind
situation
of like
like that.
this.
Exactly.
This is a good example.
This is my favorite discussion of the month. We're talking about Theme Thursday.
It's about a theme you have.
Precisely. And so I think it probably shows up a lot in discussion situations, just really in conversations. I think naturally maximizers love to talk to other people who actually know their themes, because there's a tendency to feel as if the person you're talking with has some greater understanding of who they are and how they naturally think, feel, and behave.
Yeah, I think what I sometimes find about those of us who have Maximizer, we have higher expectations
Sure.
of ourselves and others. What I like about what you've said here is when you were talking about this, I also felt what was not just the expectation, but the appreciation of strength.
Certainly.
Seeing the value of it and having an appreciation for strengths, not only in yourself, but for in other people. And I don't know if there's anything more powerful than when we appreciate people and expect people to do something. We appreciate who they are, what they bring, and we expect them to use that to have great performances. I think that is what I call maximization right there, the combination of high expectations and high appreciation. I'm just kind of curious as to how these themes evolve in us, and people are always interested in that. And you've got some analytical as one of your themes. Maybe you've thought about this, intellection. Do you see any environmental factors that contributed to the maximizer in you? Do you see anything in the way you were raised, or anything in your parents, or anything in your early experience that might have moved you in this orientation toward excellence?
Right. I would say probably my parents and extended family contribute to that quite a bit. If something wasn't necessarily done right the first time, or they saw me taking maybe a somewhat lazy approach to something, then that was definitely going to be a redo. And that could be something as basic as household chores, or just participating in something that was family based. But I definitely could see that there were times when even in my schoolwork, just C's just were not acceptable. And really the goal from a child rearing perspective was to make A's, to be excellent, not average. A C is average. So I do believe that a lot of that was poured into me in a really loving way, and for that I'm appreciative.
Yeah, no, I think that's another great example of these high expectations, but also high appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
We love you and we expect a lot of you. I think there's something powerful about that. Did anybody kind of help you see what was best in you? I think you're obviously an achiever. You work hard, you get stuff done. I think that we train that into people as well, or that comes in. But this quality part, do you remember or recall anything that kind of moved you into that more evaluating kind of thing?
Yeah, I can actually, Kurt. I can recall as a teenager, I really took to mentoring relationships at a very young age. And I actually went to college as a journalism major. But prior to that, there were a group of journalists in the city I grew up in who really took me under their wing and saw and identified that I had talent in writing. And they actually, spent group time and individual time, really cultivating that in me and encouraging that. And had I not really ultimately had this maximizer talent, it could have been very hard to take, because in journalism you can get the red marker to every sentence that you write. So I think they brought that out in me, but also taught me to have thick skin, and that showed up in later years too. I actually did work as a print journalist for a while, and really kind of took angst over every word, changing the word navy to midnight blue, or, it really was an overdrive in that environment. And but later I worked in other environments that were not journalism based, where I really had to really tame back that maximizer and not overuse it, because it didn't have to be perfect. And navy and blue and midnight blue are all acceptable words. And so there were times when I really had been taught that at a very young age, but then had to dial it back and moderate it a bit when the environment was not actually the right place for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a great point. It's a little bit about the basement of maximizer, when we are kind of have too high of expectations for a particular situation, where we I think maximizer does have a perfectionistic thread in it. We want it done the best, and so sometimes 95% is okay, and we're still striving for 100. And that may not, and I think if maximizers start to understand return on investment again, okay, I can get almost the same results with a little less quality. That may be wise. Jim, do we have any questions?
Yep, sorry about that. I had to get my mute off. So David had asked a question about, he says, maximizers is top 10 for me, but not top 5. I find that applies more to expectations of myself rather than influencing others. Can Kurt speak to the internal versus external application of maximizer, and if ranking of the theme may influence that orientation?
I don't know if the ranking affects it. I think other themes might affect it more than ranking, whether you use this more internally or externally. I think at its ultimate development, I think you use it both ways, to look not only for the best in yourself, but to look for the best in others, and I think the basement is, I think obviously we need to be critiqued from time to time. We can get better, so I think that's the challenge to some degree of maximizer, is how can I critique either myself or others without being destructively critical. That can be difficult, to give this kind of feedback about how someone can get better, especially if you don't have this kind of I accept you no matter how you do. You talked about, Adrian said I was kind of in a loving family. It wasn't that they were going to kick me out of the house if I got a C, but they wanted me to get an A. That was kind of an expectation. So I really think it's just another dimension, probably more related to other themes than you have, whether you apply this internally or externally, than the ranking on because I think if you've got it at 10, that's a pretty dominant pattern in you.
Adrian, you want to add anything to that?
I think that's a pretty good summary of that. It'd be interesting to see. We can't right now, but it'd be interesting to know what the top, kind of that middle section is, maybe like that 5 through 8.
Yeah.
To really create some context around that question.
I think Adrian's a good example of someone who used this obviously internally, how she thinks about herself and her own performance, but also, I heard her a lot talking about looking for the best and seeing the best in other people. And I think that's, if I'm going to be a maximizer about maximizer, I think that's the best part of maximizer, is this ability to see the best and to expect the best. And I think that's the push. That's the push of maximizer, is pushing people, pushing myself. That's the influence of maximizer, is influencing toward quality.
Kurt, you mentioned when we were talking a little bit about this on the pre-show, I've got such a high woo and then maximizer right next to it, and I find I'm very lenient on other people, so I want to see them improve. I want to see them get better. I can get them charged up about doing that. Very excited for them because I want to win them to whatever to be better. But internally, I don't give myself that same grace,
Yeah, you don't cut yourself slack.
No, not at all. And
I think that's a good example. That woo makes you more gracious with others than you are with yourself. I'm the same way. I have empathy pretty high. So sometimes my empathy kind of softens my maximizer because I don't want my feedback, if it's slightly critical, to be too harsh, to have I'm sensitive to how someone might feel, and to tell you the truth, that can be a disadvantage sometimes in coaching people who need the truth. And if my empathy keeps me from telling the truth, it's not helpful, I think. But I think how other themes play with Maximizer is going to have a big impact on how it's used both externally and internally. Now, I have responsibility high. That's another theme that I think does kind of the same thing. Both of these themes are what I call evaluative or judging between good, better, and best, and judging between right and wrong. And so there's a time to be I'm usually not the judge, but I think I can be judging sometimes, or judgmental, which is a kind of a negative picture of that.
So, Kurt, we might have our first ever joke around a theme. And
all
so
right.
Patrick writes in, he says, I've never met a maximizer that didn't just want to go on and on and on about their maximizer and how great it was.
Come on.
So nice job.
So I think we're talking a little bit about theme arrogance here, or maybe it's theme envy.
Oh well, yeah. It's so if you get that joke, then you probably are a maximizer.
Yeah.
Patrick, nice job on that. Janine asked a question. She said, Kurt, what are some words maximizers can use to communicate that drive to press towards greatness or to be better with teams that they're developing? What are some words that they can use?
Yeah, if you can jump here too, Adrian, because you sound like you've had maybe more experience at that than I have. What are there words, specific words, or is it about something else?
Well, I think that the first two words that come to mind would be quality and quantity. It really is about both. There's a combination. I'd say the opposite word we mentioned earlier, mediocre. It's the anti-mediocre. I would say above average. That might be just, it's the A, not the C. But it doesn't have to win. Doesn't have to be number one. It's just really a quality orientation to a number of things, a number of situations.
I don't know if there is a particular word. I think it's to some degree. I think people need to know why quality is important.
True.
I think that's part of how I have tried to. What is the effect of mediocre? Mm-hmm. What is the effect of quality? And if people can see why quality, raising the bar of quality, is going to improve either the business we're in, our customers, or helping us achieve our mission, if we're more of a mission-oriented, I think that's usually what I'm trying to do when I'm trying to inspire people to higher levels of quality. I think people need to know, is it just quality for quality's sake? I don't think that's enough for people. Why is quality important in this situation? So that's how I would kind of respond to that.
Right, and quality, actually, if I may add, quality actually prevents a lot of redos. If you can do something in an excellent way the first time, then there's actually no reason to keep doing it over and over, to repeat.
Yeah, now that sounds like that sounds like maximizer with deliberative.
Right. Well, that's true. That's my top 5 coming through there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's how those work.
Right.
And I'll have a maximizer moment and just say it was Jeannie. I pronounced her name wrong going forward, so we'll fix that. Kurt, let me ask you this question: if you're a manager, coach, leader in that arena, and oftentimes we see this maximizer theme as one of making things better, and I don't have that theme. What themes or what combination of themes could I use to drive that quality improvement?
That's a good question. What other themes could contribute to quality? I think to some degree futuristic could. I think painting a picture of a better future, I mean, that certainly could be one way that could drive it, is if you inspire. It's really about how do you take something higher. It's competition, I think, is another theme that will get people further and higher because they want to win. The motivation is certainly to win, but I think that could also kind of lift. It's interesting. We're starting work with this entrepreneurial strength finder, and I think there's probably some correlations between competition and effective entrepreneurs. Just this desire to win pushes you to get to a higher level to some degree. Those would be just a couple off the top of my head. I mean, I think another one might even be significance. When people, and I heard this a little bit when Adrian was talking about my work is a reflection of how I'm perceived, of how people see me. If I want to be seen as a credible person, then I want what I do to reflect that. So to some degree, I think significance, where people, if I care what people think about me, I want to do the job well. I think that might be another theme that can lead to that kind of quality and excellence.
Walt puts in the chat room, he says, I view Maximizer as driven to take things from good to great. Restorative is driven to take things from broken to fixed. Kurt, any thoughts on that?
Yes, yeah, that's a great way to say it, and typically when people has one, they don't have the other. And like I have high maximizer, restorative is near the bottom, and it's almost like I would rather buy something new than try to fix something broken. I mean, in my home. It's just because it takes so much energy, and I'm not very good at fixing stuff, so it's almost easier to go buy something new. Now, that's got to be kind of a small thing. I mean, there are financial limitations, but yeah, I think that's true. Maximizers are more about building and something great, and restorative is really about fixing. Those are what I would call paradoxical themes in a sense. We are out of questions from the chat room.
Oh no!
Great.
Yeah, no, we've answered them all. Kurt, let's we are at about we got about 5 minutes left. You want to kind of just wrap up the conversation around maximizers?
Sure. Yeah, maximizers are influence. I think it's always a good thing when sometimes people have a prejudice against the theme. And there might be some people out there who don't like Maximizer, and I think maybe the reason they don't like it is there's a person that maybe hasn't used it well. I call this a theme problem child in mind, and so they kind of judge the theme by the one person they know that doesn't use it well. But one of the things that I often mention to people is who are having a problem understanding the value of a theme is to think about what would happen if we somehow magically drained this capacity from humanity, where there was no longer a push for excellence, where there was no longer an orientation toward quality. I wonder what the world would be like if nobody cared about quality anymore. And what I have a feeling the world would be a less beautiful a less beautiful place, a less functioning place, because things just think about if things would not, somebody would not have the first computer that you ever had, and how, you know, it's not just about innovation. I think it is about improving the quality in each generation of something. So I think it's part of what brings greatness to anything is people who are kind of discriminating and selective and push for a higher level. And so I really think it's important that we have some people. Now, if we only have those people and we don't have people who can fix things, the world would be a mess as well. So it's not just Maximizer. But so I really want to thank Adrian for being on the call here. You have been a shining illustration of excellence. You ooze excellence, and And I really just appreciate your willingness to be with us and to share how Maximizer has contributed to your past success, and I know is going to contribute to your future success as well.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Adrian, great having you. Thanks for coming on as well from me. And one more follow-up just in the chat room. Kurt, I'd asked that question about Maximizer, what it looks like if it's low, if you have that low, but yet you're still developing people. Developer would have been a...
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Maximizer and Developer are kind of cousin themes. They are both about moving people forward. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that came from the chat room. So we want to thank you as well, chat room, for coming out today and being a part of our program. This always works best when you're here live and in chat. I know we get thousands of you who listen to this on the recorded version as well, but we'd like to have you come out and join us live. Best way to do that and keep track of all the webcasts that we do, super easy URL for that. It's just gallup.eventbrite.com. And all our webcasts are featured out there. So if you just write that down, bookmark it, you can always know what's going on here at Gallup around our webcast. Of course, if you want to take full advantage of all the resources we have available, you can go out to the Gallup Strength Center. That's just gallupstrengthcenter.com. You can send us your questions if you didn't get them answered here, or we are looking for guest bloggers all the time as well. If you want to join our coaches blog and you're a writer and you want to maximize your writing talents in that way, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com, and put guest blogger in the subject line. You can also catch the recorded audio and video of this show, plus all the other ones. I think we've done 10 or 11 so far on this strengths journey that we're doing out at coaching.gallup.com, and all the links for our social, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube are all out there at that site. We've got some meetups coming on around the country as well, and if you haven't checked that out, go out to coaching.gallup.com and click on the meetups tab. You might find one in your area, and if you're a coach, you might consider starting a meetup in your area, and if you're going to do that, let us know as well. We want to thank you for listening today. We'll stay around for a few minutes of some post-show, and remember, you can't hear the post-show unless you come to the live show, so come out and join us. Thanks for coming out, everybody.